Hello. So this is ostensibly something I was recording for the backers of my documentary, Dear America from a Black Guy. Thank you. Again, you literally make it possible to do what I do. But since I'm talking as much about the results of the trial yesterday, I'm probably going to end up sharing this with everyone. To me, we have now dodged a third bullet as a nation. We dodged one bullet with the election. I think that would have been the end of the country as we knew it. It's a flesh wound with the Capitol riots, in the sense that I do believe that for the most part, the reaction of, the country and the world was no. And these people are being rounded up and locked up, which is all well and good. But honestly, we got to see what kind of time they get and what kind of charges they get and whether or not justice is really fulfilled or not. It definitely brought into sharp contrast the double standard of justice that affects so many of us, especially when you look at the reaction at the Capitol to the Black Lives Matter protests, which looked like they were militarized to repel a hostile invasion, to January 6th having people literally opening the doors and ushering these people in, and cops literally getting beaten to death, and no one did anything. One person got shot while actively trying to breach the door to the Senate chamber, and they tried to turn that into some huge referendum on police brutality. But at the risk of sounding crass, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And she thought she could, force a barricade inside the Capitol building, and you see what happened to her. And for anybody that really tried to argue that, I just said right then, imagine if that had been me. Imagine if any stage of that day it had been me. Imagine how that would have gone down. So, there you have it. But this is about the trial, and I don't give that murderous cop's name because he's not what's important. And I said at the time that I did not dare to expect justice, but I'd hoped for it. But the Attorney General had a quote right after the trial that I thought was pretty profound, that it's not justice because justice implies restoration, but it is accountability. And I think that's important. I think that is accountability. And it's wild because this project has shifted multiple times and would have shifted other times. Because again, if Trump had won again, the tone and subject matter of the documentary would have radically altered. Then the insurrection came and that changed it. Now this came and that's changed it. But I think overall, I think it's completely clear that we have a lot of work to do in this country still. We have unarmed people of color are getting killed disproportionately still. I'd also like to point out that, again, cops aren't supposed to kill guilty people either. I point out how they took Kyle Rittenhouse alive after they knew he'd killed two people. And I bring that up not to say that they should have killed Kyle Rittenhouse on the spot, although, again, I hope he also was found guilty and also put under the jail. The fact that they took him alive is proof that they can. So when I hear this nonsense about a cop shooting a 16-year-old girl 4 times because she had a knife, a girl who had called asking for help in the first place, that's nonsense. There was a meme I had once years ago, and I haven't been able to find it because I'm sure it probably has grown quite a bit. There was a side-by-side comparison of white serial killers that had been taken alive and unarmed black people that had been murdered by cops. And I always will point to the glowing example of Dylan Roof, who they took to frickin' Burger King. I will die mad about that. I will die mad about that. And for the rest of my life, I will never be okay with the fact that he murdered 9 people in a church and got a trip to Burger King. Because I've shared this with you before. To me, in my mind, I have a very simple definition of white privilege. White privilege is automatically being given the benefit of the doubt. Being automatically given the benefit of a doubt in the way that we are not. When a person who looks like me ends up dead, excuse me, I have to cough. The immediate reaction from the spin cycle is why they deserved it, why they had it coming, why they were such a terrible person. You see the lengths they went to try and bend over backwards to make it seem like George Floyd somehow deserved to be murdered. That's what always happens. But then Kyle Rittenhouse is a misguided young man, you know? Dylan Roof is a misunderstood young man. It even goes over into the whole mentally ill lone wolf narrative, like the cowardly assassin in Atlanta that went out and killed all those Asian people. We don't get that, you know? We don't get that. We get Mike Brown was a monster, you know? Breonna Taylor was involved in drugs. As if, even if that were true, for the record, it's not. But let's just presuppose it were true. How the fact that she had some background in drugs, again, she didn't, justifies killing her in her bed while she's sleeping. And also, all that junk about Mike Brown was false also, and I can prove it. If Mike Brown had been walking around busting up windows the night before or earlier that day in Ferguson, we would have had that footage on a loop. It would have been nothing but repeated video of Mike Brown committing vandalism all the way up to the moment that he got killed. He didn't do that. And even if he did do that, show me where in the penal law that warrants a death sentence. You know, all these people that they kill who allegedly have these voluminous criminal backgrounds, they don't. But even if they did, show me in the penal code where that warrants a death sentence. You know, I saw somebody tweet the other day that the right-wing ideology would have you believe that murder is an appropriate response to property damage, but property damage is not an appropriate response to murder. And that's really what it comes down to, you know? There's still very much two justice systems in this country. Really, there's three justice systems, if you ask me. There is the justice system for white America, there is the justice system for non-white America, but there's also the justice system for wealthy America. Wealthy America. Because when you dig deep enough, the issue isn't racism, the issue is classism. Racism is a component, racism is a symptom, but racism has been a tool that has been used since this country's inception and far before to set the oppressed against each other. It's like Lyndon Johnson's quote about if you take the poorest white man and convince him to look down on the poorest black man, he won't notice while you're picking his pocket. I'm paraphrasing, but he really said that because it was true, you know? And that's really what we have to overcome. And really, again, that is the point of the documentary, even still, is trying to bridge that gap for that reason, that we're not actually enemies, that other people struggling are not your enemy, that there is a vested and prolonged interest from some parties in putting us at odds with each other. And that's unfortunate, and it doesn't have to be that way. We still have a representative government that we got this close to losing, by the way, but we still have it. You know, once we become aware of the fact that we are all being lied to and manipulated, then we have it within our power to make different choices about who our elected officials are that then, in turn, take the nation in a different direction. So it doesn't have to be this way, and we have the power to change it, and we have the power to fix it. And I'm trying to do my small part to the best of my ability to be part of the solution. But that being said, we still have to keep an eye on this situation until the sentencing is through. They still might try and find a way to pull an okey doke on us. But I mean, guilty on all three charges, that's gonna be hard to slip through, but we'll see. You know, we have to, and then stay mindful of things like appeals, you know, getting out for good behavior, all of that stuff. This is something we're gonna have to be vigilant about for years. But I will leave you this one last thing. There was another article that I read and I posted saying that they'd estimated that the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protests had saved as many as 300 lives. Like, per capita, less people are dead than in the amount that the murders were trending. So if this whole process has made any cop anywhere think before they pull the trigger, even once, much less 300 times, even once, this has been worth it. George Floyd should not be dead, but none of them should be dead. Breonna Taylor shouldn't be dead. Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Tamar Rice, Sandra Bland. I could spend literally the next hour naming names of people who should still be alive. But hopefully, the people having risen up and said no has saved lives and will continue to save lives. And hopefully this verdict is also going to save some lives. That somewhere along the way, when some hate-filled bigot who happens to have a badge is about to brutalize another person, even if it's only their self-preservation that kicks in and makes them think otherwise, that'll be a win. So, Dr. King said the arc of history bends towards justice, and I do truly believe that. I think this is a victory for justice in a battle that shouldn't have been fought, but a battle that very easily could have been lost. And hopefully this is a sign of better days ahead, but only if we stick together and fight for them.